Hey everybody, I just wanted to pop in and just say thank you to my subscribers and also new subscribers. I noticed that I've gotten new subscribers this year, so I just wanted to tell everyone thank you. Thank you for supporting my channel. I always say that I truly appreciate that because you can do so many things with your time. There's so much you can watch on YouTube. So the fact that you're even clicking on my videos or watching my channels or even subscribing, I just definitely wanted to say thank you for that. So let me speed up the process and just end it right here.
Hey young artists, if you enjoy Draw and Paint with Ja'RieGray on YouTube and you would like to show your support, you can find Cash App and Venmo information below. This channel is free to watch and learn from. If you like any of my art products, please go to mpbimage.com to purchase. If you purchase, make sure you leave a comment so my product maker know that you've purchased from the YouTube link.
All right. So, all right. Let me see if I can pop them all up in preview. I didn't have time to put your name on them because I just, airdropped them from my phone to my computer.
Yeah, and I should have did it soon.
Don't worry. And if there's anything
Yeah.
I need to flip around, I'll just flip around. But as of right now, we can see everything. Let's scoot this over just a bit. So I know you did several heads, which I'm so happy for that because that means that you were practicing more and more and more. So we see here we have the Riley method, and then here we have I believe it's planar show, so it's the Loomis method that is here. So this actual drawing, proportions feels pretty solid. And the reason why I'm saying that because they feel like they're in the right spot. Some proportions like the lips, and it really just depends on the anatomy of the person because I don't know if who you were drawing had wider or more puffier lips. But sometimes you just gotta kind of pay attention to the proportions of the feature. That way you're not making eyes too big or lips too big, or things too wide or things too narrow, things too flat or short. So you just want to make sure you are doing your best to pay attention to that because that's really what I'm saying. If we're looking at, are you doing what I'm asking you to do? Yes. The only thing is just getting the proper proportions and features in the right spot. So the fact that I can even tell which method you're using for which drawing, that's always a good thing. So here I can tell that you were trying to get your proportions accurate in certain areas. And then here I could tell that you were probably practicing. I believe it's some of the Riley method, but I can clearly see that some drawings you kind of abandoned. And it could have been just due to things just wasn't starting off right. And you were like, okay, I'm gonna practice something else. So it's really just that when I was looking at these, I was just like, okay, it's just getting the features in the right spot and the proportions as accurate as we can get them to maintain the likeness of whomever we're drawing and we're seeing. Because really, with portrait drawing, that's very important. You want to make sure that you're at very least getting their likeness. So I do know the actual assignment was drawing the cast that we printed out in the Riley method and our Loomis method. So this is what we really went over on that day. So once again, what I can see is we have the Loomis method here, and it because it's kind of like we see planar shapes and you also see rhythm lines, but we see more rhythm lines here. So this is the Raleigh method, and don't be afraid to allow, especially in a linear form, don't be afraid to allow your construction lines to show because that helps me kind of see your history, where you started, where you were in the middle of the process or at the end of the process. So although I do know you did a really great job with getting the likeness of her, because I know this is her, um, I do know there's some features that aren't in the right spot. So like this eye that is here, probably needs to be moved over just a little bit. So that will help the eyes and the eye socket to stay on the front plane of the face. The nose, I believe we're coming in a little too S curve with the nose from the keystone shape down to the nose and also the ball of the nose. So when we think about that actual image, and then let me see if I can pull it up just to get a better idea of features and what we are seeing. Was it week 2? And it's this one. Let me see if it'll allow. Yeah, it'll allow it to pop up. Good. Yay. So let me see if I can put them side by side. Okay. So if we are looking at these two, it's probably best to do this. If we are looking at these two, this is what we are seeing. This socket that is here. So as you can see, we have a 3/4 view that's here. So that I can clearly see that you do have your center line that is here. This part of the face is going to be more narrow and smaller than this side of the face, which we do have it here, but you need this side of the face to be a little bit more narrow than what you have it. So what you're doing is you're slowly turning the face forward versus keeping the face in 3D in a three-dimensional in a 3/4 view purport or position. And that's what I'm trying to say. So slowly but surely your eye sockets are being frontal view versus 3/4 view. Same thing with the nose. If this is her keystone shape that's here, you have a keystone shape, but you are turning it towards you versus keeping it in a 3D view. Same thing with the top of her nose. Can you see how long her slope is? Your slope is more of an S curve, so you curved in her slope in more than what needs to be, and then you brought it out and rounded it out. So you have a um and it's probably just something that it's just coming out of you when I say this. You have a way of whomever you're drawing, they lean more towards African descent. So that's probably just coming out of you. Versus when you start to draw, you want to get that person likeness no matter, what their culture is. So you lean towards that way. So you want to make sure that when you're drawing, whether it's from a photo, whether it's from life, you want to do your best to get the features that you're seeing, the anatomy that you're seeing of that person. And it's just making sure you kind of telling your brain, okay, this is what your brain is telling me. Like, okay, this is what you're telling me, but this is what I'm actually seeing. So you have to kind of oblige by what you're seeing and not what your brain is telling you. That's the only way I think you could kind of turn that portion of your brain off. It's just kind of just saying, all right, this is what I'm seeing and this is what I have to oblige by. Um, and that's the only way I can see that you're how you're comparing the two, and or at least how we're seeing them compared. Um, and then when it comes to the baseline, you you have the ball, but we're missing the baseline because of how this S curve is so abrupt in its curvature. So we kind of lost the baseline. And then when we come back in from the philtrum down to the septum, you didn't push that center line all the way back to bring out the philtrum. So if we look at hers because of the anatomy of this bust, her philtrum and also the top of her septum or the end of her nose, there is a lot more space, and also her muzzle is a little bit more flattened. So the muzzle of your drawing curves out versus flat. And that's also an anatomy thing. And also that's an anatomy thing that's differ from European culture and African culture. Like our muzzle sits out a little bit more because our side slope, we have more of a sloped face versus a flat face. Europeans, their muzzle is a little bit more flatter than ours. So you just want to make sure you're kind of paying attention to, does it curve out or is it flat? That way, you're positioning the muzzle in the right spot, and you're also you're getting the degree of the slope. Is it straight? Is it slanted? And that would also definitely help you with proportions and putting those features in the right spot. All in all, like I said, did you do what I asked you to do? Yeah. We have a Loomis method head and we have a Riley method head. We just have to work on getting features in the right spot, and we just have to work on getting the features to closely resemble what we are seeing. That way we can get the likeness to the best of our ability. And that's really what the ultimate goal is. Um, is lightness is likeness the goal of every artist? No. I remember I had a professor, although I absolutely love her, she was amazing. She did not care about likeness. That was not her stilo. She was like, yeah, what I painted or what I draw did not look like the person. I don't care. Like that was just kind of her attitude about it. So, I mean, you could be just like, yeah, I know I didn't get the likeness, but yeah, I'm good. Like it's really up to you as an artist if you want to focus on likeness or not. And I'm assuming you do, but I mean, I guess that's a question I could ask you, James. Do you want likeness or not? Like, is that what you want to focus on?
No, I want to be. I want to do like this. I want to be versatile, and I think, but I'm having that battle in my mind. I think trying to draw what I see, and then trying to get it. I don't, the coordination. So no, I'm universal. I want to do what I see. And that's when I'm coming to you with the issue. And you're bringing it to me, okay, you're seeing you to telling me what I'm really seeing, what I'm really doing wrong. But it's just one of those things that just can't seem to just get it there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and that's because that's what I'm noticing. That's kind of even in person, I kind of noticed that was a bit of an issue when you took portrait drawing one the first time in person. Um, I think you're just kind of obliging by your brain and what your brain is telling you versus you saying, this is what I'm seeing and this is what I need to this is dominant. This is what I need to get down is what I'm seeing. Because the only reason why I'm saying that because sometimes I have to shut my brain off and tell my brain, okay, I need to look at shapes. I need to look at forms. That's good. If I can nail these shapes and forms, that's going to get me closer to likeness. And that's kind of the only way you can shut down. Okay, I'm drawing these features in a way that my brain is telling me to draw them. Because that's what it is. Like think about it, like we're African American, we're black. So that's all we see constantly. If you think about it, what is around us all the time, our family members. So we're used to seeing these features, wider nose, more fluffier lips. We're seeing these features every day. So it's like you're kind of projecting what you're seeing onto what you're drawing versus drawing what you are seeing. I think that makes some more sense. So you have to kind of tell yourself like, yep. Oh, unmute your camera, unmute your mic.
yeah, I was saying you're preaching now. I mean, really, this is what I come from. I want the objection. I want you to tell me, stop it. This is what you're doing.
Mhm.
But you don't have to be nice guy. And I get this is. But I appreciate and I respect your authority and I respect your vision. I respect who you are. But that's why you are where you are. That's what I'm coming to you for. Trying to I know it, but I just can't seem to pull it out. And I know it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
And I think I'm rushing it because I feel like I'm running out of time, which I feel like most of the time that's what it is. And don't have enough time, so I think that's what it is. But I think I'm trying to, as I learn more with you, it'll begin to rekindle, like it more, But I want what I see. I like what I see, but I want to draw what I see.
Hmm.
Even in my mind, it's not coming out what I see. It's
Hmm.
totally different, and it gets a bit frustrating. So I guess it's going to take this is a skill that definitely need to be worked, practiced.
Yeah, and really what I tell all my students like I'm thankful for the professors that told me what I need to work on because now we have a clear idea of what we need to work on. And we can focus on that. It's not so much of the methods, because I think you understand the methods. It's a more so, okay, I need to make sure my features in the right spot. The head is turned into perspective accurately. I'm doing my best to get to the likeness of what I'm seeing. So like that is what we really just need to hone in on it and just kind of focus on it. You need more practice on that. That's why I said today when I saw the images come in, I was like, okay, should we move on to the next project or should we just focus on linear structure? Because clearly you just need more time with linear structure. But I was just kind of like, technically with this project today, that's all we're focusing on for this day is getting the linear structure down, getting the lightness down, and we're getting the underpainting down. So separation of light part and dark part. But we do need to make sure the drawing is as accurate as we can possibly get it. Um, if we're going to continue to move on, which I think it'll be fine because I mean we can always we can always alter our sessions to focus on what we need to focus on. Like, I don't know, next session we could just focus on linear structure for 4 weeks. You see what I'm saying? So we can always alter it to make sure that it's fitting what makes sense to you and what will help you when it comes to getting better at drawing portraits. So I just wanted to kind of like just go over that with you because I think that kind of helps with just having a clear understanding of what we need to do moving forward. All right, so I do want to talk just a little bit about this image that's on the right side. I believe it's your right side as well. So I'm gonna close out the grid so you can see everything. So this is Tim. Tim, I actually was introduced to him crazy enough, but on Instagram. I absolutely love his work, especially his color pencil work. And I'm gonna be honest with you, kind of following him and seeing his process even helped me in my own process when it comes to exploring color pencils and exploring color pencils in a way where they start to look more like a painting. Um, and really, I use a lot of my painting skills in general when I'm using color pencils, when I'm using pastels. So I always try to introduce my students to him because if you look at his work is quite beautiful. You see his swatches for his pencils all around his paper. And also, probably today and or next week, I'm going to have you, probably today, I'm going to have you swatch all of your pencils. That way, you're able to see the actual colors of your pencils and what you may need to help you with the process of your drawing. So I don't know if you can see because I know I got all of this stuff blocking, but you can see one side of his drawing is his underpainting, and then the other side is him actually. The way that his process is, I'm noticing he kind of like starts in the area and kind of radiate out, which is fine to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, Everybody process is different. And I'm going to talk about my process and what I'm going to teach you. And of course, on the left is my color pencil drawing. That way you get an idea that every artist is going to have their own technique and their own process when it comes to the media. But I'm going to be honest, the process doesn't change. What changes is the material or the tool that you have in your hand. And of course, there's different processes, but if you, whether you're sticking to a direct painting or indirect painting is really up to you. So just a brief review of Prismacolor pencils. So once again, we need to know what our materials are and how to use them, because that also helps us with, the next steps of when it comes to applying or how we're trying to manipulate our materials. So Prismacolor pencils are wax based. They are easy to blend over 3 to 4 light layers using a burnished heavy layer of pigment as the last layer. So this is very important because this is the traditional way of using our colored pencils. Typically, you will come in with light layers and you put in those light layers of colors in areas that they need to go. And then once you get enough layers down, then you start to burnish. So that means you're coming in with heavier pigment, heavier weight on your pencils, and that's how you're able to blend these colors together. Because Prismacolor is wax based, it's easier for you to blend colors or make colors out of colors from these pencils, if that makes sense. When you have oil based, that's a little bit harder because that's more of a layering method. A wax based, because it's wax, it's easier for us to blend those colors together to make new colors. So that's just a little bit of a briefing of Prismacolor pencils. Other blending tools for Prismacolor pencils can be used colors blending pencil. So sometimes that comes in a set of here's the thing, it should come in your tin, but of course they don't put it in your Prismacolor tin. But typically you have to buy a colors blending pencil separately. But really all that pencil is the binder of a color pencil and no pigment. So that is what allows you to blend colors together when you have enough pigment down on your paper when it comes to Prismacolor. Or you can use a colorless alcohol marker, and that's pretty much an alcohol marker that doesn't have any pigment. It just has alcohol in it. So the alcohol, because you can even do this with rubbing alcohol as well. Alcohol, what it does is it breaks down the binder that's in the pencil and it releases the pigment. So this is what helps you blend two colors together as well. Or you can use paint thinner, which is all mess. It does the same thing as the alcohol markers where it pretty much just breaks down the binder and releases the pigment. And most artists that use a paint thinner, they're looking more for a painterly look or feel to their color pencils. So these are kind of some simple blending tools that you can use if you're just having trouble with blending. You could definitely use that. Papers are very important because one thing that I didn't know when I did go down the rabbit hole for color pencils is that your paper plays a huge part, probably more of a bigger part in drawing in our dry painting with color pencils because of the fact that if you don't have the right paper, you're gonna kind of struggle with your color pencils. So unfortunately, I don't know why, but manufacturers that produce color pencils, they don't really tell you what papers to use. You kind of have to, find out for yourself, and that means that you just have to experiment with different papers. But what I do know, what tends to work is color pencil paper that you could get from Strathmore, because that paper is designed for color pencils. Then you also have Bristol vellum paper, which work really well, in my opinion, with Prismacolor pencils. So you just kind of have to experiment and figure out, okay, what is the best color pencil paper for you? So manufacturers nowadays are producing paper strictly for color pencils, which is a good thing because it eliminates the huge experimentation of you trying to figure out what paper is good for what color pencil. So we do need to have a little bit of a background of, what our tools can do for us to kind of help us with the process for the end product. So just some visuals on these supplies so that way, so you want to make sure when it comes to your paper, I would suggest these are some of the two best for learning. You could either buy the Strathmore color pencil paper or you can buy Strathmore Bristol vellum. Um, can you use Bristol smooth? Yes, I have had students use smooth. The only downside that I noticed with vellum and smooth is smooth doesn't allow you to get a lot of layers because it's a very smooth surface. So you have to really nail where you put in your colors and in your layers. You have to just kind of know how to maneuver on that paper. Vellum, because it has a little bit of texture, it allows you to apply layers to it. So it's a little bit more forgiving for a color pencil artist. So that's the only difference between the two if you ever run across that. And then when it comes to our Prismacolor pencils, we're using the portrait pencils, but I also suggest just for teaching this class, especially in person, we all notice in class that yes, the 10 for the portrait, the 24 pack is good, but you definitely need other pencils that are in your assorted 24 pack Prismacolor pencils because it does, your portrait only comes with so many colors. So it's always good to kind of have both, because that would definitely help you if you need to lean a little bit more towards other colors that you don't have in your tin. Then when it comes to your blending tools, so this is a Prismacolor alcohol marker, but it's the colorless alcohol marker. And then this is the Prismacolor colorless pencil. So these two are very good for blending your pigments together from your color pencils. If you need just a smooth transition of one value in color from one to the next, or if you need other colors that you need to produce out of two different pencils. So those are always it's once again it's good to just know your materials and how to use your tools because that definitely helps you in the long run. So when it comes to portrait, when it comes to dry painting with colored pencils, we are going to use the indirect painting method. So this method for us, how we're going to start it is we're going to start with our Prismacolor erase pencil. So I need to make sure I really look at the temperature in that picture. That way we know if we need a blue underpainting or an orange underpainting. But I believe I'm gonna have to look and see when it comes to that image. But typically, you want to start with a blue underpainting, depending on your light source. So if your light source is a warm temperature, that means you're going to need a blue underpainting because you want your shadows to be cool. If your light source is a cool light source, meaning that it doesn't lean towards the warm side, it's very cool in its temperature and color. That means you need a either I would suggest an orange. I never really go red, I go orange. And so that because of that, we need warmer. Our shadow mask needs to be warmer in its tone, in its temperature. So that's very important for step one for this actual project. We are starting with the underpainting. We're starting with the actual linear structure. We just want to make sure we're starting off as accurate as possible. So after the underpainting step, students will glaze the local color of the person's skin or tone. So if we do have enough time today to get there, then we'll go ahead and do that. So we will pick a local color of the skin tone, and then you will lightly glaze that over with a very thin layer of colored pencil. That way you know what the local value and local color of that skin tone looks like in the light mask of the object and also in the dark mask of the object. And then, of course, the last step is we start to render, and that would be next week. We start to render with light logic principles, um, maintaining our local values and also value distribution with color. So those are pretty much the three steps. So I have a three method step to my colored pencils, and that's how I teach colored pencils. So when it comes to the steps, this is actually Chris Hong. Chris Hong is an artist that I found on YouTube, crazy or not, but love, love, love her process. And she uses the same process, but her steps are a little bit more. I simplify it down to three. She has it down to four. So for today, if we look at this image that is on the left, this is what we want our linear structure and our underpainting to look like for today. And then if we get there, we get to step two, which is glazing. So as you can see, she has lightly glazed over the local color of her skin tone over the whole face. And then from here, you start to apply your light logic principles and also value and color distribution. And then you continue to render layers, or at least putting layers down until you start your burnishing. So your burnish layer is always last. It's always last. So typically, most artists will burnish everywhere. Some artists like texture. So as you can see, Chris left her forehead and her hair a little bit more textured. Where she came in with a burnished layer was the eyes, the nose, and the lips, and a little bit in the shadow mask, right? So it's really up to the artist where they want to leave texture or where they want to be textureless. So it's up to you and how you want to design that. But these are clearly the steps that we're going down. And once again, the image that is on the left is what we're focusing on. I probably need to screenshot this and send this to you. So that way you have a clear idea. So these are my steps. So hopefully you can see it. So typically, you already know when I start with my linear structure, I draw very lightly because I have to build to darker lines. And also I might be changing things around. So I do my best to make sure that my lines are light. So this is my linear structure of Gina. And then Gina, I remember when I did draw her, she was under a warm light. So I did have to find my shadow edge everywhere just to make sure that I was clearly separating my light mask of the face and this is my shadow mask. So I blocked this out with a 45-degree angle. So you always want to make sure that your lines are close together. So you have a smooth tone. That way you have that clear separation. And then from there, of course, my third step is not here. I had to glaze a little bit of her local color, or at least her local value in color of her skin tone. And then I'm gonna talk to you today about the three zones. Typically, our face has three zones when rendering in color. We have a orchid zone, we have a red zone, and then we also have a cool zone. And really, a lot of that is due to light, because our lighting, depending on the temperature, that can affect our yellow zone. Our red zone, that is due to blood that pumps in our face. So we typically have more blood coming to the surface of our skin for our nose, our cheeks, our ears. So that's kind of why this is considered our red zone. And then when we think about our cool zone, there's a light drop off. So light isn't 100% hitting in this area. So this area becomes a little bit more cooler, because of the fact that it's not the closest to the actual light that is illuminating over the surface of the skin. So those are things that we have to think about when we start to move into rendering. But once again, today our steps is linear structure, separate light mass from dark mass, and that's pretty much it. So when I know I talked a bit about the three color zones of the face, so I'm glad that I'm transitioning into that. It's very important to kind of think of those things and how to divide the face into three zones, because we clearly do see that. So once again, we have our yellow, our white, which is the top of our head. So our forehead is more of a yellow zone. And then we have our red zone, which is our cheeks, our nose, our ears, because that's the bloody areas of our face. Then we have our blue, greenish, our gray tone, which is our chin area. That is the area where we see more of coolness, especially in males, because a lot of times males have like what is the 5 o'clock shadow for their beard. So in that area of their face, that area is a little bit more cooler in its tone, because you might have hair that is growing in that area. So it's always good to kind of keep that in mind. But even with females, you tend to have a cooler zone around the chin area and the jaw area. So these zones are very important, because if you're trying to get lightness or realism, because every day we see these zones, you want to make sure you understand that you are putting that down to get a little bit more of a realist effect to your portraits. So this is just seeing it from a computer point of view, but I can see the image that is on the right side. This is very, how would you say? This is more exaggerated. So when we look at the forehead, it's very yellow, very orchid. When we look at the red zone, it's very red. When we look at the cool zone, it's very blue, and a cool down yellow as well. So this is just more of an extreme in my opinion, but this is what we actually see on a normal basis: more yellow, more red, more cooler colors. So cooler red, cooler yellows that we're seeing in this particular skin tone. Same thing here. So if we think about different skin tones and how the actual three color zones look. So we have someone with lighter skin. We still want to think of yellow, red, cool. If we have someone with darker skin, you still want to think of yellow, reds, and also cools. So that's very important to just kind of keep in mind that no matter what your local skin tone is, you're still going to have these three zones. They're just going to look a little bit more different. So we have more browner yellows in our foreheads for darker skin. We also have more brown or red that are going to be in the red zone. And then we have more cool browns that are in the chin and jawline area. And this is differs. We have more yellowy reds for lighter skin, more of an actual red for lighter skin for the red zone. But they kind of lean a little bit probably more pinkish, oranges tones. And then we have like cool greens and cool yellows and cool blues that are for the chin. So it is for all forms of skin tones. So once again, let me open up the so once again, all of that, once again, is very quick but kind of simple and to the point for what we need to do for our project. So I am going to go more into color next week, and then I'll also do my best to make sure that I have a little bit more information. That way we can get a better idea of making sure we're getting the proper skin tone, the proper glaze that we need to get down for the actual drawing. Go over the handout and then you'll get started on the drawing. And I'll walk you through the drawing and also make sure I'm paying attention to your steps. So the handout is pretty much things that I just went over on the lecture, but you have it in handout form, just in case you're just kind of like, wait, she said this, but I don't remember that. You have a little bit of notes that are here. So of course, I did put down the steps for our 3-step method to our color pencils. When it comes to your drawing for today, we only need to end up with our underpainting. So our underpainting, how we're going to start it, we're going to start our drawing with linear structure. So we want to make sure linearly our drawing is as accurate as we could possibly get it. Then we're going to find our shadow edge, and typically it starts in the hair, but we'll find our shadow edge and then we'll maneuver. Why do I got to spin in the wheel of death? And then we'll maneuver through the shadow edge of the overall face to separate the light mass of the face and the dark mass of the face. So the goal is to end up with something similar to this by the end of hopefully today, or at least by next week you'll have this completed. So that's all we're focusing on today is step 1. And then of course you have my process. And once again, this is our step 1 is get the linear structure down and then separate a light mass from our dark mass. 3 color zones, so that way you have an idea of that's what I'm looking for when we start the color process. Is making sure we do have those 3 zones that are there when we start our rendering process. So once again, it's just everything that I just pretty much went over in the lecture. You just have it in a PDF form, and it's just notes. Let me stop sharing. Are there any questions before we get started? So really quick, Jane, I'm gonna pin myself
Okay.
on the screen. So yeah, you can see this. So when you're, can you see my screen and everything in the image?
Yes.
Okay. So things that I want you to pay attention to while you're getting down, because really what you're getting down is your gesture, but we need to make sure we're thinking about angles of things. So I placed in on the actual print is the angle of the head as the head tilts back. You want to make sure you're paying attention to this angle. So as you can see, I drew it on the actual reference. That way you can clearly see, okay, this is the angle I need to get down on my drawing. Same thing for the front of his head. You can see the angle, the diagonal angle of the direction of the front of his head is going, his chin. And then when it comes to the neck, so what I want you to pay attention to early in is the neck is stretching on one side and it's pinching on the other
Pinching
side.
on the other.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's because the head is being tilted. So that means the spinal cord has a very abrupt change in its curve from the head down to the rib
Right.
cage. So you want to make sure that your cylinder early in is pinching on one side, stretching on the other. So these are things that you want to make sure you are paying attention to while you are drawing. That way we can nail the gesture of the tilt of the head. Because that's kind of the first step we really do got to get down. So I wanted to have that there. I'm gonna screenshot it and then I'm gonna drop it in the chat for you just in case. And pin you back. So I dropped the image of my screen in the chat just in case you need to use that.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna get it right now. Got it. Got it. All right.
So James, although you are getting in the side temple of his head, pay attention to where you're placing the temporal ridge of his head. So if we look at the actual image, his ear is further down from his eyebrow. You could always take a skewer or a pencil and you can line up the corner of his eyebrow to his ear and get the angle you need to look for. So if you see now your skewer was straight, it didn't line up to the top of the ear. So you want to make sure, yeah, that way you get an angle. So you can see it's more at an angle versus at a straight. So his ear is going to be placed lower than where you placed it. I believe you were placing the ear in the temporal ridge. So, James, I'm gonna let you get the drawing down, and then I'm gonna compare. That way, we know if we have it in the right spot.
Okay. All right.
All right, James, I'm gonna pin myself. Um, so um, some things that some landmarks I want you to pay attention to because I can see that you're getting in the overall outline of the head, and I also can see that you're trying to get some contour lines in. So early in, don't worry too much about your contouring because we just want to make sure that some of the basics are in the right spot. So what I am seeing is, or what I need to see a little bit more clear is where this actual temporal ridge is. So as you can see, where you always want to make sure you're pulling it out at, you want to make sure you're looking at the arch of the eyebrow. So this is the arch of his eyebrow. And that area that's here is what I want you to make sure you're paying attention to because this is where the overall temporal ridge is going to come out at. So as you can see, I lightly drew it in because I'm just trying to make sure it's in the right spot. So of course I'm using a lot of lines to kind of get that oval or that circle that's there. So because I have this arch that's here, this is where your actual line that helps you with the top of the ear should come from. So I'm able to bring down a line that's here to the top of his ear, and then I'm able to cross it with a vertical line. Because remember, the ear should be in the fourth quadrant. So you want to make sure that you're placing that temporary in the right spot and make sure you're placing in this circle, or you can say over either or, in the right spot because that's going to place your ear in a more accurate area. Because this part of our face that's here is the front plane. This part of our face is the side plane. So we just want to make sure those planes are separated. As as good as we possibly can get them separated. So just make sure it's very clear in your drawing. I'm gonna leave this pin just a little bit for you, just in case you need to look at your computer screen, and then I'll switch over to your screen sooner than later. All right. So, yeah, this is better. So what I am seeing is so far what's happening, and it could be there could be two things that are going on that I'm seeing. Let me admit you back in. Um, and also let me get on participants to make sure you got me. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
All right. So what I am seeing so far, in comparison to the image, is the ear is probably too far up into the cranium, and also the eye sockets that you started with are also too far up into the cranium. So I know he doesn't have much of a forehead, but I also know I would suggest bringing down the brow ridge a little bit lower than what you have it. So if you're pulling everything very up within the cranium, then that means that's going to affect other features being placed in the right spot.
Right. Okay. Right.
Um, so definitely pull down the brow ridge just a little bit, and then we need more of a diagonal angle for the ear because that's also placed it's still very vertical and it needs to be more vertical. It's more horizontal and it needs to be more diagonal. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get the shapes down of his eye sockets for you. Let me get another colored pen.
Mhm.
All right, James. So I'm gonna chime in because I see that you have your ear in, and I think you're maneuvering into a center line. Um, so let me switch over to my screen while you're doing
Oh, I'm in trouble now.
that. No, I'm just trying to
I'm
make
trying.
sure I'm catching you in each step. And that way we can fix each step as we go. So, couple of things that I'm noticing from what I can see is I know you're going into your eye sockets, which are really good to see. I did my best to see if I can get my box to be a little bit closer to the camera, but um, if we're looking for the center line, so the center line is very important in this stage because that's going to help us place in our eye sockets accurately. If we're
Right.
looking at our viewpoint for this photo, yes, he is a side view, but he's a side view, but it's slightly three-quarter view. And the reason why I say that is because there's an eye socket, the nose is overlapping the eye socket that's on his right side. So it's not a true side view. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to that for our center line. So that means that our center line, we want to start it very generic and we want to curve it. So we want to make sure that this side of the face is more narrow and slender, and that this side, because this is majority of the face that we are actually seeing. So we want to make sure we're placing our center line in the right spot. And you always kind of want to look at the nose and how the nose is divided into the actual keystone area, which is the glabella that's here. We want to make sure we're placing it in the right spot. And the reason why I'm stressing this because if we don't place this in the right spot, you're going to accidentally start to turn the face towards you. So we want to make sure at least that center line's in the right spot
I
before
can
we
see that
start.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, before we start with our eye sockets. And then while you're getting the center line in the right spot, I'm just going to draw out the shape on the eye sockets that you need to pay attention to.
Don't worry about the nose right now because we haven't even gotten our thirds down. So, what we can focus on, because we do have our brow ridge in, we can focus on our eye sockets and we can focus on our keystone shape. I'm going to switch my screen over and pin it so you can see the shape of the eye sockets you need to get. So here I've drawn it out where you can see the actual shape of the eye socket that you need to get down. So what I can do that way, I think this will be probably better. I'm just going to screenshot it and I'm just going to drop it into the chat. So you got a better idea of all of the shapes and adjustments that I was just talking about. Your center line, the eye socket, the circle for the temporal bridge, and let me put it in the chat for you. So I went ahead and put it in the chat. That way you got a clear idea of what is the shape you're looking for the eye socket for both of them. And also
Okay.
where is the actual center line. And now that we're slowly starting to put some features down, how do that center line start to adjust to those features? So once again, get the keystone shape in, get in your eye sockets, and then we can divide the face into thirds. So I'm just trying to make sure some of those earlier steps are at least a little bit more accurate for you before we head out of class, because that's important. That's your foundation.
All right, so I'm gonna remove my pen and pin your drawing again so I can get a good look at it because I know you did some corrections.
Okay.
That's better because I know you adjusted the ear because the ear was looking a little small. And I do see your temporal ridge is looking better. It's looking a lot better. So I think those landmarks that I drew onto the actual photo actually help you understand the shapes you need to draw. And yeah, that other eye socket is looking better. Um, it's in the right spot. You're getting a better shape for the second eye socket that's closest to you. Your center line looks like it's in the right spot. So when you get the whole eye socket in that's closest to you, um, then you want to get your three. You want to break the face down into thirds. So you just want to make sure you have a line for your nose and a line for your chin because we need to make sure those vertical spacing, those units are as accurate as they need to be because that's going to help you with placing the nose in the right spot, the mouth in the right spot. So we need to make sure before we head out, the foundation is there for your drawing. Do you need me to put the image back up on the screen?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I I have it in the chat. I have it pulled up in the chat.
Okay.
It's just a matter of this.
All right, James. So a couple of things that I have to make sure I am catching you on. So let's start with um the ear. Although we have our circle for our temporal ridge, and we do have your ear in the fourth quadrant. When I look at the line, as you draw the line from the corner of the brow ridge, I'm noticing that line is still it's not at a diagonal. It's looking more horizontal versus diagonally down, if that makes sense. So like this line that we see when you look at the image, when you see, so I'm looking at the image and I need to pin myself so you get a better idea of what I'm trying to say. Let me pin myself. So when we're looking at the image, when I look at your drawing, your line looks like it's going in this direction versus the line going in this direction. So it needs to be more diagonal. Yours is looking you're trying to make it diagonal, but it looks more horizontal to the camera's view. If that makes sense. It just needs to be more diagonal, and I think that will help you place your ear in the right spot. And what I mean by that is it will help your proportions because right now your ear looks a little bit big. Prior, it was looking too small. So I think once you adjust that angle from the corner of the eyebrow down to the ear, that'll get you in a better proportion for the ear, and also the ear will be better placed in that spot. Um, and let me pin you so I can see where you're at with that. Bring that line down towards you. I'm sorry. The camera.
Right,
So
right here,
you
bring it down.
No, so the corner of the eyebrow. So do you see where the corner of the eyebrow is? Okay, so you see how your line for your brow ridge is very consistent with the line that lines up to the ear. Do you see how it's kind of very straight across versus diagonally down?
Or should be like this.
Not the brow ridge. Your brow ridge is in the right spot. It's the dividing of the temporal ridge. So that circle that you have on the side of his head, right? There's a line that divides the circle into halves. So
Right,
not the vertical line, it's the horizontal one. So the horizontal line that divides that circle into half, you have it instead of having it going down diagonally towards you, you have it going across. Like it's too consistent with your brow ridge. It needs to go down diagonally. So let me see if I can do this. I know you're probably not. Let me share my screen so you can see my arrow. And I think or at least my arrow for my mouse. I think that will help you understand what I'm seeing. So do you see my screen right now? Just so I know.
yes,
You see my arrow?
yes.
Okay,
See
so
arrow.
okay, so we can see your drawing together. So this line that you have here is your brow ridge. That's accurate. That feels good.
Right,
This line, you see how it's like consistently going across the page?
right,
So this is the corner of your eyebrow in this area. What I'm saying is
right,
this line, instead of going straight across, it needs to go down. So you see how my arrow is being pulled down towards you. Yours is
right.
going across and
Oh,
it needs to go down. So what's happening is because this line is very straight across, it's making your ear bigger than what it should be because this circle is not divided properly into halves vertically and horizontally. So if you bring this line down, that should get your ear in the right spot and that should get you to a better proportion for your ear.
right here.
Yeah, it's that line. That line needs to be pulled more diagonally down than what you have it. So the brow ridge is fine. That part is fine. It's just that as soon as the brow ridge gets to the corner of the eyebrow, that line needs to start going diagonally down from there. And it needs to be more diagonally down. So if you see the angle that's on the actual printout, that's the angle that you're trying to get to. All right, so this corner area where my arrow is, so this brow ridge from here to here is accurate. From what the line needs to do from here to here, we need to pull it down. So it needs to be more diagonally down. Yours is still very straight across. I think your camera just decided to go to sleep.
I think it's running out of power. Oh yeah, we're out of power.
All right. The camera said, yep, you know what? The class was supposed to be over and y'all still going.